Chris Boris is a ghost doctor, a ghost behaviorist, and it is a blast to welcome him onto the podcast to talk about all the activity he found at the very creepy, haunted Oliver House and so much more about what he does. This is the most excited I've been to have. I love what you do, and I love your passion, and I felt heartbroken for the Collingwood Arts Center when you essentially broke up with them.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
So I had met you, and I've enjoyed your tours in the past at the Collingwood Arts Center, with the detail and the passion that you had, and it was really a creepy place. So how did you stumble over there after spending a lot of time Collingwood Arts Center and other places? Because I was a downtowner, and I had heard the stories about the Oliver House from people who have lived there or know people, and they've heard all the creepy stories. So how did you make your way over there?
Yeah, so Oliver House is kind of like the holy grail of trying to get into that place, because they've been so tight-lipped about everything, and they haven't let anybody in for like 10 years. It seems like ever since the ghost hunting craze went nuts, they were just like, okay, nobody's allowed in, which made us want to get in there even more. And I actually emailed them one day. It was like perfect timing, and they looked up who I was. I go by, I am the ghost doctor now. They were really piqued. Their interest was piqued by that. So they're like, tell you what, come on in, see what you can find, and then we'll go from there. And I ended up getting so much footage. I ended up making a YouTube video about my experience there, and I thought it'd be maybe a 10, 15-minute video, but I had so much paranormal activity happen to me. The episode that I created is like a full-blown 40-minute episode, something you'd see on TV.
How much time did you wind up staying in there? Obviously, lots of footage, but how much time were you in there for?
Well, I arrived about 6 o'clock, and this was in February, so of course it gets dark really early, so that was perfect, because I don't like staying too late. I've got a family and all that.
Sure.
So I stayed for about 4 hours, and it just exploded around me. Many times when I go into a location, sometimes activity has to warm up to who you are and what you're all about. But this, as soon as I walked in the door, they wanted to make themselves known, like, I'm here, come get us. So it's nonstop roller coaster ride.
It's interesting, I guess, the politics of them letting you come in there, because for as much as I've heard of the activity that's been there for years and years, it was never people that were afraid. Like, they were people who would either go there to hang out, go to the bar, wherever it would be. They live there, and it was nothing like unsettling or threatening. They're just like, oh, they're just they're tenants that don't pay rent.
Right, and I didn't experience anything malevolent there myself. Now, what I do is, so I call myself a ghost behaviorist because I get very psychological with the spirits. I use psychology, philosophy, sociology to do what I do. And it's interesting because there's reports of a woman that I call the jilted wife, because she was left back in the late 1800s, I believe. And I was coming at her through a psychological means to figure out, okay, why are you still here, and really driving, the point of her emotional state. And I had my recorder running, and she, at first, as I started getting a little closer and closer to her emotional state, I got the EVP of her saying, "Get out," and then a few seconds later, she said the F word at me. So I like hit a nerve with her or something, but that's about as extreme as it gets.
You've never had a ghost or an apparition curse at you before?
No, that's the first time, and it kind of took me aback. I'm like, oh, okay.
And by the way, like, I'm 100% believer in this. I didn't want you to come on for any kind of like pot shots or low hanging fruit. I love all this stuff. That's why I was so excited that Lexi could connect me to some of your ghost hunts. It must have been like 7 years or so ago now. I always look forward to going into these types of places and seeing what we can find. And it was funny when I showed the message you had sent me to the podcast crew. We were trying to figure out who you were mentioning, and that was our friend Kennedy, who was just she was like a student podcaster we had invited on for a couple episodes, and she is deeply religious. So I think that's where some of the divide might have been. But we're all big believers with this.
Okay, yeah, because I heard your podcast when you mentioned me the last time, and the one lady that was talking to you, she's very religious, and she's like, I don't want to believe in this. It's all demons and things like that. I just, for the record, I want to make it known that, what I do, I'm probably one of the rare few that actually brings religion into ghost hunting, because when I'm in the field, I grew up Catholic, Roman Catholic, and I bring Buddhism into this as well. And when you start getting into interactions with spirits and start really coming at them with how does the afterlife work, you start to see there is a spiritual tier system. There is a hierarchy pulling the strings of the lower levels, and you have to start thinking this in terms of black and white and God and the devil. And I know it's kind of weird to say, but once you start getting into the deeper layers of this, that's the only end game of what's really going on in this spiritual afterlife.
Can we do some ghost hunting 101 if we could? Because I'd like to brush up on some of that as well. Like where are these apparitions? Like where are they stuck in between life and death? Where are they?
They are all around. One of the best examples of this is if you read the Tibetan Book of the Dead, which was written in 800 AD. They really know what they're talking about, and they talk about they talk about 6 different realms that are kind of layered on top of each other. And one of the examples that they give is, you could, in your state that we're in right now, we can look into a river and see water. But if you're in these other states, these other realms, you could look into that same river and see a river of sludge, a river of lava, depending on what realm that you're in, the hell realm or the angry god realm or things like that. So what I found is when I start interacting with these spirits is, they're occupying the same space that we're in. They're just kind of, slightly off so we can't see them.
Mm-hmm. So it's not a matter of, like, I guess the common thought of they're stuck in between worlds, like they're not alive, they're dead, but they can't quite get to where they need to be, their final goal for the afterlife. It's just different realms or dimensions.
Yes, and this is the most, for lack of a better term, the heaviest realm, which is the material realm, because we're made out of solid matter. And when you look into things like the Kabbalah, they talk about there's kind of like a vibrational weight system to the universe. There's a vibrational world, an energy world, a material world. And once you start seeing that, everything's layered, you can start to see that, okay, these spirits are around us. We can't see them. We can't really interact with them unless we have the right tools. But once you start getting in there, and if they want to interact with you, you will get some type of interaction to happen.
I get it. So would that make, like, the traditional idea of a ghost a little inaccurate? Like, I guess the pop culture idea of it is they die and then they come back to haunt you. In a sense, they're just they're humans, for lack of a better way they're beings in another dimension, not necessarily like my aunt died and she's coming back to visit me.
Yeah, and there's many different kind of states as well that you can exist in the other side. I've actually, one of my major foundations of what I do and how I do this is I've come up with 6 different spirit types in the other side. Some are judged, some are not judged, some spirits are wandering, some are craving, they got that psychological hunger, that's why they're here. Others have come back to help, they're helper spirits, and others are just very malevolent, they're very destructive. So there's all kinds of different types, and they're here for various reasons and interacting with us for various reasons as well.
How messy can the malevolent ones get? Like, how much bad can they do to us?
Oh man, it depends on how much power that they have. See, when you start to research the more demonic type of hauntings, it always starts off very calm. And what happens is, over time, they're building energy, and it's like more energy, and they're just feeding off people. Many times in these instances, the families will get very irritable. They'll blow up for no reason, and of course the spirit's making that happen, and at the same time he's feeding off that energy and becoming more powerful, and to the point where he can start manipulating reality and doing things that are very jarring, and they can create bigger scenarios where they just feed off your life force because their end game is to destroy humanity.
Oh, well, that's really not good.
Yeah, very pleasant.
Have we gotten close to anything like that?
Yeah, and I don't want to go too in detail, but man, the world's just full of these evil type entities, and it just you start going down the rabbit hole, and you find out that there are different tier systems to the demonic. That's the next thing I've been working on, is breaking down the demonic realm, and I've come up with 10 different demonic types that exist out there. You have the parasites, then you have the demons, and then you have the devil class, which is totally different. The devils are kind of like in charge of the demons, and then you have the archetypes like Lucifer and Moloch and all them, and then you have all the other critters. You have the demonic bats and rats and spiders, and then you have the aliens. There's an alien class out there, watchers and fallen angels. It just a lot to take in within a short interview segment like this.
This is not. This is the fun of podcast. We can go as long as you want. I mean, the radio show. They're like, come on, you got commercials to play. People are tuning out. I love this stuff. I'm super fascinated, and I had no idea that you could go that deep with it. I wasn't expecting. That's why I'm like just sitting here with my chin in my hands. Do you remember? Go ahead, go.
And I'll tell you, no one else is talking about this stuff. When I turn on TV, Travel Channel, things like that, no one is talking about this. You know what they're doing? They're doing stuff they did back in 2008. And this is why the paranormal field is kind of dying right now, because they keep doing this. Everything they're doing is old hat. And the problem is they keep casting the same people to return in brand new shows, but the problem is they're doing the same thing they did in the last show. So we're not seeing the paranormal field evolve, but hopefully, and this is going to be very cryptic, I can change all that within the next year. So.
I look forward to that. Now I have a hint as to why you can't talk about certain things, which is fine. So, like I said, I'm just sitting here listening and with utter fascination. Do you remember the movie Contact with Jodie Foster? About 20 years ago. So, and this is 20 years ago now, and things have changed and gotten much better. Yeah, I guess the more modern one would be maybe Interstellar. But Contact always had the reputation of, if something exists, it's probably like this. A lot less like, aliens and nonsense like that. Just like a higher state of consciousness in different realms. Is there a ghost movie maybe of some acclaim that you could compare to the world you actually dip into?
There's actually on my YouTube channel, there's a series that I've kind of started. It's called Pop Culture Paranormal. And the first episode that I did is, so the basic premise is taking Hollywood movies and break them down so they fit into the real world. Like, if this movie happened in reality, what would that look like? And there's a kernel of truth in just about every movie that you look at. Even Ghostbusters, which is a comedy, there's some truth to it. Down to the color of what Slimer is. I'm starting to get into the why spirits are certain colors that they are, and it's very interesting because there's a whole psychological issue to that as well. But so the one video that I broke down was The Ring. Which was a horror movie back in the early 2000s.
Is that of the Asian background? Am I thinking?
Where the girl comes out of the TV screen.
Terrifying.
Yeah, and I tell you, everybody that's watched this video, they walk away there and they go, "Wow, I never thought about that movie the way that you broke it down," because I talk about the basic premise is this girl comes out of a TV and sucks your life force until you're a zombie shell. And I break that down to the point where I point out that she's in her own reality in the wherever the ghost realm that she's occupying, and basically like a genie that's stuck in a lamp. She comes out and she needs to feed with her life force, and so in essence she's like this demonic thing that's sucking her life force, or sucking the life force from a human. Once she's full, then she goes back into her corner pocket universe or whatever, until somebody plays the tape, which I link that to kind of like a curse that somebody is unlocking, and the curse slowly breaks down your mindset until they can invade it and feed from you. So it's very deep.
Are more apparitions, spirits, ghosts than not malevolent, just wandering, trying to find their way and not harmful?
Oh yeah, I would say I can't give you an exact figure, but I would say that there are a lot of spirits that I interact with that they're just like, hey, I'm here, I died, I'm just figuring things out, I mean you no harm, I'm just here. And it's funny because when you look at Travel Channel, it seems like 9 times out of 10 the interactions that they get are have to be demonic. They're
right
going for that jump scare pop culture type situation.
Well, those movies are more prevalent in entertainment and more entertaining. It's like if it bleeds, it leads with the news, or else we'd have a million Casper the Friendly Ghost movies.
Absolutely.
So what happens if, because I bet you this is a question that people have thought about, what happens if I do encounter something in my home or somewhere where I frequent? Maybe I work after hours or wherever, and I work in a lonely building, and I encounter something other than reach out to you. What do I do?
Okay, so 9 times out of 10, when you encounter something, it's probably just coming in. It's very the power that this thing has is very low because it hasn't feeded off anything. It hasn't grown in intensity. So 9 times out of 10, you can kind of push those things out with a house cleansing, house blessing, burning sage, doing prayer work, something like that. Also, in my YouTube video on the Oliver house, which you can find on YouTube by searching Ghost Dr. Chris. For the very first time ever, you'll see on film someone using the Tibetan singing bowls to heal and cleanse an area, which I did in the Oliver house, and the results just blew me away because I had meters set up in the other room we're talking the other side of the Oliver house, and when I started doing this singing bowl session, every one of those meters that I had on the other side of the building started going absolutely nuts for 5 minutes nonstop. I've never seen anything like that happen before, so I definitely struck a chord with these spirits.
What is it? What would you define the energy, if it is definable, that causes those meters to peak? When I fill my gas tank up, it goes from E to F. What's the energy or whatever causing that meter to move?
Right. So when we're alive, I mean, we have a whole nervous system inside of our body that emits kind of like an electromagnetic charge. And when we die, our soul passes on. It kind of the soul retains that electromagnetic charge, and what we find is that spirits are able to, for whatever reason, use that electromagnetic field to influence these devices that pick up those EMF readings.
Got it.
So that's why we use a lot of those meters and such that do just that.
What's the most frightened you've ever been in a situation where you were hunting, doctoring, behavioring?
Okay, so this would probably have to be the Collingwood Art Center. Now, 99% of my interactions at the Collingwood were very, very positive. However, this one was very negative. I was in the basement. I had asked, we were interacting with this, and look, I had a whole tour group with me. They all can testify to this. I had a group of about 20 people. We were in the basement. We were interacting with the spirit, which we think was the nun that worked there in the 1950s. Her name, I think, was Marie or something like that. And I asked the question, is there something malevolent here? Because in the past, I've gotten little tastes of something being there, but not like a full-on evil coming at me. And right after I asked this question, all the meters in the room, because we had a couple of them set up, all of them just stopped reacting. And I was like, did I scare you away? It just kind of baffled me. So about 2 or 3 minutes later, all the meters in the room started spiking in unison. But see, there's the meter that I was using has a 5-tier spiking system. So if one light goes off, it's very low intensity. But if there's like 5 lights that go off, it's very high intensity. So what was happening here was the first light started going off, but it stayed on. I've never experienced anything like this before, unless you go up to a plasma TV and this thing starts going off because it's emitting electricity. So I had this thing sitting. We had these meters on the ground, and one light went off, and it stayed on for a good minute. Then 2 lights went off and stayed on for 2 minutes, and then 3 lights went off and stayed on for 3 minutes. And it's like, what the heck's going on? The best way I can explain it is like a building intensity. And as this was happening, we started feeling really weird, like something was building up to a crescendo. And I kid you not, it started getting up to 4 lights, 5 lights, and we're just looking at each other like, okay, what is going on? All of a sudden, I heard a scream where I don't know where it emanated from, but I heard a screaming. Other people started seeing shadow people darting across the room. I saw a flash of light where I don't know where that came from. We were just experiencing all these things. I'm like, oh man, if I start getting scratched up or something, that was going through my mind.
Scratched up, like someone scratched, like someone's nails in your face, or something, like an object on you?
Yeah, usually in these type of situations, people will get scratched, and you'll just start getting welts, unexplained welts on your body. Thankfully, that did not happen, because as soon as this thing reached its crescendo, it started dissipating. And I kid you not, the meters that we were looking at, they started going back down to 4 lights, 3 lights, 2 lights, 1 light, and it just went away. So that's what I call the rolling darkness scenario that happened at Collingwood.
What part of the basement is that where like all the extra furniture is?
No, this one is right underneath where you first walk in, where the children's center is. So you go down there. That's where they had the Blacklight Theater for a while.
Okay. When you walk down the stairs, you go right or left?
To the right.
Okay. Yeah, I remember you had talked about that room, and it was like pretty empty when I did your tour one time. And then I remember, and I don't know, maybe I'm letting adrenaline or anxiety talk me, but I think I'm pretty intuitive, whether it comes to something dead or alive. But I could feel what you were talking about then, and every other time I'd been back there, I'd take friends, I'd be like, this room is super haunted, so if you're scared, get the hell out. And then I think I went like, it must have been 3 or 4 years ago, that room got changed over into more of a banquet vibe and not nearly as scary. So I think it ran off whatever might have been lingering around there. But that's how that can happen, right? You change the setting or the home of an apparition and they find another place to go, right?
Yeah, and I've been told after I left there, I guess the spirits kind of stopped interacting with people. So whatever I was doing, I guess kind of resonated with them. So if you go there now, I don't know if you'll experience anything, but boy, we had a fun time when I was there. Let me tell you.
What got you into all of this?
Growing up, my grandparents had a very old house, and there's times where I remember I'd be the only one at the house. They'd run up to the drive-thru real quick to get something. And I'd be the only one in the house, and I'd hear people walking upstairs. And I'd go up there expecting to see people, and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm all alone here. So something's going on. As I got older, all these pop culture movies like Ghostbusters and whatnot kind of got the fascination, my imagination running. And I really wanted to experience some paranormal activity, and it wasn't until 2004 when Ghost Hunters, the TV show, aired that I just became extremely fascinated, because they showed, hey, look, there's an ideology to this. You can go out and use certain methods to get interactions with spirits. So I thought that was the coolest thing. So I just gravitated to it.
What's a place that you'd like to visit because of the likely paranormal activity that is residing there?
Oh man, so something that's on my bucket list is the Winchester House out in California. I don't know if you know the story, but it was the widow of the person that made the Winchester rifles, and a psychic went there and said that everybody that's been killed with a Winchester rifle is now haunting your house. So the widow got freaked out, and she's like, okay, well, the psychic said the one way to kind of confuse these spirits is start making additions to the house that kind of lead nowhere. So this lady spent millions and millions of dollars because she was very wealthy, making rooms and staircases that lead nowhere to kind of confuse the spirits and entrap them. Which is kind of ingenious because when you look at the Celtic culture, that's why they have the Celtic cross that is designed with all these squiggles and lines that go nowhere in the intricate design. Because I've come to find that when it comes to demons and things like that, it'll actually confuse spirits or demons and things like that. So I tell people as well, if you have a manifestation or something evil in your house, buy one of those Chinese wall spirit hangs because there's a lot of intricate designs, and it'll kind of wrap those spirits up and kind of keep their mind occupied so they aren't haunting you.
As opposed to, and much cheaper than than making your own proton pack.
Yeah, they're like $10, so very cheap.
It's probably cliche, but I also love the Civil War. It's my favorite time in our history. But I would love to go to Gettysburg and feel what that is like. Have you been? Have you heard anything about it and the paranormal activity that's there?
I went there for my class trip in the '90s. I was a junior, and our whole class went, and I was just enamored with the whole thing. They had a tower there, a battle tower went in that, and I was like, come on, something jump out at me, but nothing happened. But what I've come to find out later, and this is one of the spirit types that I've come up with, is the confused spirit. See, no one has ever put this together or talk about this, but when we look at spirits in Gettysburg, we see that the most interactions people will get out there are the reenactors. The people that go out there dressed in full the military garb, and they'll actually have officers kind of materialize and interact with them. So you have to ask yourself, okay, well, why is that? And what I've come to understand is that these spirits, they died in battle. They're probably reliving that moment over and over again.
Sure.
And on another level, they're actually, they have a level of dissociative disorder, which means that if they're dead and they're not happy with the fact that they've died, they are canceling everything out in their mind that has to do with death. And that's very easy to do because when you're dead, you can start to manifest things by using energy in the afterlife. So they've manifested their own little pocket universe of the Civil War, and anybody that's dressed in modern day garb, like if you and I just go there, they won't see us because they've canceled everything out that deals with the living out of their reality. But the people that go there dressed in that military garb, they're allowed to pop into their little pocket universe because they've become one with it. So
one of my questions was going to be like, how can we more seamlessly enter their world as they do ours? So thanks for answering that.
Yeah, you have to be time period specific if you want to interact with these spirits. Perfect example is I don't know if you watch Ghost Adventures, but I just love Zach. Zach's a ham, and he went to this one place. It was like a bar that existed back in the early 1900s, and he was down in this area trying to get some interaction. And it wasn't until he sat down in the bar and he's like started ordering a drink. This is the exact same way you would order one back in the early 1900s, that he started to get things to happen around him. And he started scratching his head going, why did this happen? I don't understand. And, well, that's why. He was interacting with a confused spirit that's canceled out anything to do with the living.
What's another popular or maybe even off the beaten path, a place that people might want to visit around here in our area that could be accessible to them for a ghost tour or a ghost hunt? There's the what there's something in Maumee, right? Well, what's the building where Levi and Lilac is now, right?
Oh, yeah, I've heard about that. I think it's the Chadwick Inn. Is that it?
I don't remember the name. I used to go there all the time when it was dégagé, and I was there enough to hear the stories about upstairs. And what else is haunted around here?
Now, this people might not be familiar with, but the Woodlawn Cemetery, I've had some great interactions out there. But you have to have ghost devices, or it won't work. I've had some funny scenarios where I've had this thing I call an ovilus, where I like to call it a voice box for the dead. It'll spit out words that are associated to the energy that's picking up out there. And it's funny because I went out there one afternoon trying to get some interaction with the spirits, and I kept asking, okay, I want a name to pop up on this device. I was walking around for a good 10, 20 minutes. I didn't get a single thing. And I said, okay, if I'm going to go, if I don't get anything, I need some interaction here. I want a name on this device. So I had a word pop up on the device. I can't remember right now what that word was, but it wasn't a name. So I said, okay, well, that's not a name. I'm out of here. And as I started to get into my car, I had two words appear back to back, which has hardly ever happened. I've only had that happen twice in owning this thing. And I got the words paranormal, and the next word was enemy. And I was like, oh, okay, that's what you think of me, huh? So it's just kind of a humorous interaction that I had. And then on another occasion I was out there, I was filming one of my Ghost Doctor episodes, the intro for it, and I was like, I need a creepy backdrop for my intro. So I went out to the Longwood Cemetery again, and I had my camera. The battery was fully charged. I shot my intro, which was only about 5 minutes long, threw the camera in the backseat of my car, got home, went to plug the camera into my computer, and it was dead. And I was like, wait a minute. I only used this camera 5 minutes. There's no way this camera would be dead. So something out there was feeding on my camera and drained my battery.
Woodlawn Cemetery. Makes sense. What are some myths that you could dispel about ghosts, ghost hunting, anything like that?
As in terms of places around town,
or just as far as like, that's ridiculous, or things that people often get wrong, or might even just be sarcastic or cynical about what you do.
Well, I got to tell you, the whole body of research that I pull from is very, how should I say, threatening to the paranormal field right now. It seems like whenever I do these conventions, these paranormal conventions, it seems like I really resonate with everybody that attends them. But the people that really have a beef with what I talk about is the people that are making money off this field. And that's where I start to butt heads with people, because I'm coming at this from a foundational way that incorporates Eastern philosophy. And I find that when people don't understand something and they're threatened by it, they kind of lash out at it, and that's where I'm at now. So
got it. It's a very human. It's a very human reaction, especially when you talk about like you're threatening the stable foundation that is there, which means people's money. So when you threaten people's money, they're going to do what they can to try to break you down.
Right, absolutely, and it just goes hand in hand with that. One great example is the confused spirits. A lot of people will sit there and go, well, these spirits, they use the term residual hauntings, where I use the confused spirit analogy. And they feel that residual hauntings most residual hauntings are these spirits that are kind of on like an audio tape where it's played back over and over and over again. And the problem with that is, sometimes, especially on TV, they will many times say, oh, well, there's a residual haunting at this location. But then halfway through the episode, they start interacting with it. I'm like, well, wait a minute, you just contradicted yourself. How can you interact with an audio tape that's being played back.
Right.
So we've got to start changing our mindset. And when you look at Eastern philosophy, they've answered all this stuff. I mean, the stuff that I pulled together, it's nothing new. I mean, it's out there. You just have to, put two and two together and come up with these theories.
Not that I'm looking for the treasure trove of information or anything or to reveal any secrets, but when you say Eastern philosophy, what do you mean?
So one of the things that I do is I pull from the Tibetan Book of the Dead. In the Tibetan Buddhist culture, they have these things called the sutras, and those date back, 600 years before the Bible was written. In fact, there are certain circles that believe that Jesus actually was taught Buddhism, and a lot of his teachings come from a lot of the foundations that are found in Buddhism, because there's so many parallels.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So when I start plugging in things that you find in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, and that's a big one because when you go to Egypt and you find that the Egyptian Book of the Dead, what they did was they scribed it on the walls of the funeral where all the sarcophaguses were. And you got to sit there and go, well, why would that be? And you have to think, okay, well, wait a minute. If you're dead, you leave a book there, you can't turn the pages. But if the information is on the wall of what to do in the afterlife, hey, you could just look at that and be like, okay, that's what I need to do. So that's why they did just that.
We could do a whole other thing on mummies and the Egyptian dead, right?
Absolutely.
That's another podcast visit. I'm a big believer. When I was trying to solve my own mental health challenges, I did a lot of exploration into Buddhism and mindfulness. And this makes all the sense in the world. This is just treat people decently. So you can see, I could totally buy that into how it bled into Jesus and so many other things. And it meshes so many. Go ahead.
And you have to be careful, too, because the Buddhism that is taught in America right now is very, very watered down.
Sure.
It seems like all the druggy hippies are into it. But it's funny because the Buddha specifically said, do not do drugs, because those bring in certain types of entities in the afterlife that are on that certain vibration. So, that's another thing you have to worry about as well.
Correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe this is just like pseudo-Buddhism, but the Buddha was all about suffering and learning to deal with it and embrace it and not live a life with those gluttonous things.
Yeah, absolutely. He came from a very wealthy background, and it's like the people in government today. They're up in their high rises and their ivory towers. It would be like them saying, you know what? I've had enough of this. I'm going to live in the streets of the ghetto and see what I can learn. You don't see that today. But that's what Buddha did. He was like, you know what? I want to see what's going on. And he started to learn about all the suffering and all the things that go on that people are kind of hiding in the background. So he really tuned into that and brought that knowledge to the masses.
Wasn't it Siddhartha who just sat under a tree for how many ever decades or thousands of years?
Yeah, well, he was the Buddha. He was the very first Buddha. There have been like 11 or I can't remember the exact number. But yeah, he sat under a Bodhi tree for quite a while until he gained enlightenment, where, and the same thing that happened with Jesus. He went out to the wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights. And it's like, well, what did he do out there? Well, the universe kind of, opened up his mind. It took a crowbar to it, and he's like, aha! And, the same thing happened with the Buddha. All these secrets of the universe just came spilling out. And, I could say I've had the same kind of revelation when it comes to this, this spirit realm. And I just have so much knowledge just coming to the surface. So, it leads back to good and evil, black and white, God and the devil, and the spirit world is just part and parcel of that.
This was super fascinating. I could literally ask you and pillory you with questions for hours and hours in different directions. But I was really excited when I saw that story in the Blade about the Oliver House. Like I said, I was like, "Oh my God, Chris broke up with the Collingwood Arts Center." But I know he definitely went with the better looking partner, because, like I said, that Oliver House is super haunted, and it is really a great building aside from all that stuff. But this was awesome. Let's talk about what you got coming up, or what you can, and how people can track down some of your stuff.
Yeah, perfect. Oh, the one thing I wanted to talk about too with the Oliver House is the groundbreaking footage that I got there. I did an article. I was so excited about this for the Blade, and Yahoo News even picked up on it. Never been on the front page of Yahoo News, but I was there, and it was because that I ended up getting a physical manifestation occur on film for the very first time in color. Now, this is important because every time you've probably seen something happen on one of these ghost hunting shows, the night shot vision is on. So every time we see one of these spirit things, it's black and white. But not in this case. When we saw this spirit manifest, it was a really brilliant greenish color, kind of like Slimer on Ghostbusters. And what's interesting is that when I first saw this manifestation occur, I thought, oh, this must have been a reflection. But as I slowed the footage down and started analyzing it, I started checking off the boxes like, wait a minute. I mean, it happened in front of a window, but the problem is there's a divider in the frame, and the reflection of this image went right over top of that divider. So I'm like, that just can't be a reflection. It's got to be something. And when you slow it down and blow it up, it looks like an actual hand that manifested to, reach out and give me a handshake or something. I don't know. But it also, I mean, you could draw a direct line from my line of sight down to where this hand manifested, and it was right in my direct line of vision. So we've got that going for it too, and it's just very incredible. I encourage anybody that's interested in the paranormal to watch this video. It occurs around the 24-minute mark.
Yeah, it's some of the most incredible paranormal footage that you'll really ever come across. All the stuff that you've talked about, the places you'd watch these things, it's something very different. And the thing that jumped out to me was certainly the color there as well. So this was awesome. And where can people watch your content, follow you, all those things?
Okay, if you go to YouTube, type in Ghost Dr. Chris. I'm not that big enough yet where you type in Ghost Doctor, because I guess there's a manga or a comic book in Japan of the same name. So I'm getting beat out by that in the search. But if you type in Oliver House or Ghost Dr. Chris, that should come up, even in the Google search.
Awesome. Well, thanks for the time. Good to catch up. Hopefully, I run into you this fall during the freaky season, and catch on to some of the cool things that you're doing.
All right. Well, thanks for all the kind words. I appreciate it.
Take care, Chris. Thanks so much.